Good morning. Welcome to Josh Trade's morning stream. And got a lot going on this week. We've got a huge move up in the S&P 500, a pretty relentless buying the last 10 days or so. And now we're trying to figure out when this buying streak is going to come to an end and what that's going to look like. So hang out with us for the next 45 minutes and we're going to be going through the indexes. We're going to be going through some of the Mag 7 charts, take a look at oil, some of the events that are happening for the day, and see where we might be going next on the major indexes. So let's start out like we usually do with the S&P 500. We've been moving in this channel for quite some time. We did see a distribution pattern and a breakdown, but then we had a stick save here with the ceasefire, and everybody who got short here is being forced to cover. That's what's fueling this rally. This is really some new buyers, but mainly some short covering on this rally here. Interesting that we have blown through every single resistance along the way. 670, 680, this trend line at 685, 690. So now we're really up in basically no man's land up here, with a kind of a final two resistances available to us around 698, 96. So former all-time high. Throw that on the chart for you. And as we pull into the 700 level and the 710 level, this is really our last chance at some sort of resistance to this rally. That's a great place to start taking some profit on some longs, especially with some of the Mag 7 longs that have been performing so well. So keep an eye on this area here between 700 and 710 as a good place to start taking profits long. And maybe positioning short again. Here looks like 707, 708 on the S&P 500. When you look at this from the futures market, really getting close to this all-time high here on the S&P futures, which we're at 70.43. We're currently at 7,007. Some idea of how this might play out. We've got this clearly defined channel that we're working in. We could see a quick liquidity grab here that will give us nice headlines, new all-time high, maybe 70.50, 70.65, and then a collapse from there. And we're really not sure what's going to happen after that. We've got some former trend lines turn support that are now in play. So not sure how the market's going to move from there, honestly, as it comes back into the $6,900 level. Is it going to bounce off of this expired trend line, or is it going to break through? Is this some kind of false breakout? And then same thing here. If it gets below, fills some of these gaps and gets to 6,600, how is it going to react to this trend line? And now we've got a bunch of support levels here that we can bounce from. So a lot of uncertainty, honestly, in the indexes these days. But what's interesting is that, in my opinion, there's a huge divergence underneath the hood of the market where a lot of the Mag 7 names, a lot of the names that have led this rally up are starting to look incredibly bearish. This was kind of a last chance pump for them, but there are a ton of other stocks in the market that look incredibly bullish. So are we going to finally get the sector rotation that we've been looking for? We'll have to see. A couple things to note here as we look at the futures. A great reason why we don't use the MACD and the RSI as primary indicators, because here we had a super oversold level here, but price continued to run up another 180 points on the futures. So we're seeing it again. But when you pair this with resistance levels like this, then you start to get a confirmation that maybe the move is extended, especially when you see it remain overheated for a while and you pull into an all-time high like this. That shows that maybe it's overheated. But if this is able to get some good news and get above the all-time highs, there's really nothing above here stopping us. And when I look at this chart here on the daily, on the weekly, it does look incredibly bullish. We can't specifically rely on the MACD. It looks like it wants to cross here, but that's more of a bullish setup than it is bearish. So kind of taking this day by day. I don't own any S&P or QQQ, so it doesn't really matter to me what happens, but it will help us kind of determine the direction of the underlying stocks. If stocks are having to swim upstream, or if they're have the wind at their back, that's something that's important to know with these here. So going to have the similar look here on NQ, the S&P, or I'm sorry, the NASDAQ futures, pulling into these resistance levels here. We've got one at 26,000. We've got another one at 26,400. Former all-time highs has already formed a double top there. And best case scenario, we're looking at about 27,500 on the NQ futures. And when we look at the RSI, just pulling into that 70 level about now. MACD hasn't rolled over yet, but it's getting a little bit extended there. When we go down to the 4-hour, we start to see that same look we had on the S&P. This is a little bit bearish. We've got a MACD divergence here. Actually, that didn't help. When we zoom in on this here, you can see we've got pretty much an equal high on the MACD, but we have a higher high in the price. So that shows some weakening here. Doesn't mean it necessarily has to stop here at 26,000, but it just shows us that the move's getting a little bit tired. So same thing here. Are we going to see this come down into this 24.5 level of this broken trend line, fill some of these gaps? Where is it going to go from here? And broken trend lines, are not as powerful as active trend lines, but they're interesting to have on your chart just to understand. Okay, we've got a area that we need to, price has to battle it out here. So it will at least pause when it gets to those levels. Taking a look at some other things, the DXY, this has been breaking down, has found a expired trend line here and is starting to take a pause. If you're bearish equities, you want to see this DXY get bullish again. But if this does break down, that is positive for the market. Bitcoin, we did see a breakout here of this trend line and looking for it to test maybe 80, come back down and fail here for a possible entry around 70,000. So keeping an eye on cryptocurrencies here. Same thing with Ethereum, same looking chart. We want to see a test of maybe 2,600 with a failure down to about 2,000 for a potential entry there. The Russell 2000 has been really on the move compared to some of the others, a lot more volatile than the S&P and the NASDAQ. Is starting to pull into its all-time high levels. But as you can see, pretty much the same kind of look on the chart. So are we going to come back down here and test this trend line? Do we get back into the channel? What does that all look like for the Russell? The Dow Jones, again, same look, a little bit more subdued than the NASDAQ, just because this rally has really been in tech. Almost exclusively in AI tech. So here at 50,000, we have our resistance again. Broken through all of our trend lines, retested here, is on the move again. Starting to show a little bit of weakness, but that's not something that we can really make a move off of, but just starting to show a little weakness here in the color change in the bar there. But probably looking for this to still maybe get to 50,000. But as we look here, we've got a really pronounced MACD divergence here on the Dow Jones. So we've got slightly higher high here, almost like an equal high, but slightly higher high, and then diverging here on the MACD where it's making actually a lower high. So that's something to keep an eye on. Same thing here on the RSI. It just shows that it's starting to kind of run out of steam. Now, there's not necessarily a great resistance level here. I mean, there's a couple of these little peaks here, but this 49,000 looks like it might be some sort of short-term resistance. We did have a rollover in the VIX contract last night and this morning where we went to a new forward month. So we were moving here in this larger bull flag. We broke down below that, and now we're below all these trend lines, and that's really why the market has gotten so bullish ever since really this day here was kind of the low on the S&P. So we're really looking to see, this is a very confusing look here. This is not something that's giving me good information, and it's tough to chart the VIX because it doesn't work the same way that stocks do. But here we've got a move up, which I think is more associated with the contract reset than anything. But as we get to these all-time highs, obviously people are going to start buying a little bit of protection here for some downside. Here in China, the Hang Seng Index got a little bit of a breakout here. They obviously are hoping for a resolution to the war, so we'll see what happens with them. But similar look here where we've got the same kind of distribution pattern, a retest, and we'll see if this name can hold with the U.S. market. So taking a look at a lot of the Mag 7, Apple really didn't participate in this rally like many of the others did. So when we look back at right here is about pretty much the low. We did have a small move up, but not anything significant like we're going to see in the other names. Amazon, just crazy move here from the lows. This one was already looking a little bit bullish here where you had the trendline support. So that's really why this one moved so well. It had a lot of technical support, broke through these former highs, is sitting right near the all-time highs. So really expecting this move to really fail up here in the 260, 265 area, getting a little extended, but that's just kind of, again, we use RSI as like a early warning sign, not a firm yes or no, but really looking for this to fail in that 270 region. Google, this one had a crazy breakdown, a false breakdown, and that's why it had such a powerful move up, is because so many people got short under this neckline, and for it to regain the neckline and force all that short covering really fueled this rally here. So we're looking for this 350 level. How's it going to react at the 350 level? Potential head and shoulders here. Doesn't have to be like a 1-for-1 even head and shoulders. But as we start to look at these Mag 7 names again compared to the SPY, we're starting to see a lot of the stars align for a little pause here. And then we have to figure out what's the long-term downside here. Meta, another huge mover off the lows, right from this trend line. So that's why I had such a big move. Looking for the same thing, some kind of head and shoulders setup in the 700, 750 area. And then if you're bullish on this, you need to see it get above 800. Microsoft, this one didn't participate as much. Take a look at the IGV and see how that's doing today, which Microsoft is the biggest holding there. So just battling with the 50-day moving average. I do have calls, 450 calls in this, so I'm hoping it can be a late participant in the rally here. NVIDIA, again, another false breakdown, really powerful move up from 160 to 200. Same story here. Are we going to get a rejection, kind of a head and shoulders kind of look here? Tesla, this one, I actually sent an alert out yesterday. For those of you that are watching this that aren't a member of the community, this is kind of some free alpha for you. I did send out an alert to buy TSLL, which is 2x leverage Tesla, here at around the $11 level. We've got targets of 20, 25, and 40 on that. Expecting a breakout of this range and a move up to 450 or 500. They do have earnings on the 22nd, so that is something that will really affect how that goes. One of the things that I've been keeping an eye on is the semiconductor index, SOX and SMH. Those are the two that track the semiconductors. And here we had a false breakdown. Again, really the theme of the last 2 weeks is false breakdown leading to short covering. So we had this massive short squeeze, just unrelenting short squeeze straight up. I mean, look at that candle. There's nothing like that. Even though semiconductors have been crazy the last 5 years, this is the craziest move of the entire 5-year period. Just unrelenting move straight up, huge gap, not a single red candle in sight. But we're starting to see some topping patterns here. We're running into the trend line. We've got a MACD rollover and cross here. We've got the RSI significantly overheated. So let's see what can happen with this. I am short semiconductors. I was short them from about here, was hoping for continuation here, and am now holding those bags through this, waiting for their final collapse. These are some really long dated options, so I've got plenty of time to work with those. Obviously, it would have been nice to have it complete its collapse, but decided not to. SMH, we're going to have a similar look here, coming into longer term trend lines again, peeking its head above and starting to show a little weakness this morning. Obviously, when you have this big of a run up, any sort of red candle gets you a little bit excited. So it doesn't mean anything yet, but we've got a few topping signs here on MACD starting to have some divergence and roll over, and also just where it's at relative to the equator up here around 10. You'll see in the last 2 years, we've really not gotten above 5 or 6 on the MACD. So this is a really, really extended move on that. So that's another unique way that you can use the MACD, is kind of judging where it's at on the equator. It's not like a signal on its own, but it just really helps you pair together all the things that you're seeing on your screen. So let's take a look at some of the events for the day. Don't think there's much going on today. We've got import price index at 8:30, manufacturing survey, some Fed governors speaking, home builder confidence. So kind of light to medium news here in the market watch. Let's see if there's any events today. Yesterday, I was mistaken. This 5:30 meeting, I read this as the Chinese ambassador to the U.S. This was the U.S. ambassador to China. So that did not end up being an important market moving event. So we've got a 1 p.m. press conference. So that's going to definitely move the market. Scott Besant's involved. So market's going to be curious what he's got to say there. Some signing time here, if that's open to the press, that could move the market. Now let's take a look at some of the earnings that we've had yesterday and today, and see if there was any follow through yesterday. These JP Morgan charts, I don't know what's going on with these candles, but see if we can get this removed and take a look. So yeah, really just kind of not much happened here, cleared out both ways on JP Morgan, and it's just really sitting right at the price that it closed at right before the earnings. BlackRock, similar look, it's up a little bit. Citi, same thing, up a little bit. CarMax, that's a stock that we've been interested in our group, did have a sell-off here. Looks like it was down almost 20% or so. So big sell-off there from CarMax, but a sale back into this COVID low support at $40. And part of the reason this move was so violent is because it was also selling off from the 50-week moving average. So kind of a technical sell-off there. So great spot to accumulate shares in this, again, at this $40 level in CarMax. Again, that's something that we have alerted as a possible investment. J&J, I do have puts in this that are not really working. Did beat earnings yesterday, and now we're forming a channel here. So really looking for this to break below 234, anything above this 243 level, and I need to cut these. But this really, its immediate reaction to earnings was down. Conference call brought it up, but that was really due to this expired trend line here. So we'll see how this reacts to these two trend lines, which way it wants to break out. This morning, we've got ASML getting down a little bit on earnings. Let's see what the headlines are for this. Silicon Wave, blockbuster Q1. So it looks like it was positive, but down a little bit, and that could just be a technical thing, just because it's overextended. It's sitting right here at the highs. So a sell-off here in ASML to start. See if the conference call can save them. I don't know. Again, I don't know why all the banks have these weird wicks. If there's something weird going on under the surface. But Morgan Stanley reported this morning is initial move was down. Now it's up. So the high wick there is 200. See if it can take that out or not. BAC, lots of banks this week. Again, has those weird candles. Looks like it's up on earnings a little bit. Progressive, this one's been down a little bit lately. And not much going on earnings here. Not much movement. So if this loses this 195 level, 200 level, there's kind of a big gap here down to 160. So keep an eye on that. This could move kind of quickly either way. Let's see. And then tonight, really the biggest one we have of interest is JP Hunt, trucking company. They've been doing really well this year, getting back into these all-time highs at 236. So let's see how they can respond to that. Are we going to get a push through or a breakdown on JP Hunt? So now hopping into the dashboard that I built myself for options, whales options. These are 60 to 270 day bullish calls. We've got bearish puts here, same thing. We've got longer term conviction here. So these are leaps over 300 days to expiration. What are whales buying and putting in their portfolio to hang on to for a few years? And then the pre-programmed flow alerts. So we'll hop into a few of these. We'll look at a few of these names here from yesterday on the bull and the bear side. Get this set up on my second screen here. So we've got SNXX. Oh, this is the long-term, I'm sorry, the 2X SanDisk ETF. That's interesting. So SanDisk is the underlying here. We did have a almost 100% move here off of this support from 550 to 1,000. So here we did have a move from 30 to 81. So almost a triple move there, 150%, or I'm sorry, 200% or so, because it's a 2X ETF. So we still have bulls hammering this name, which is crazy. There's a lot of optimism around SanDisk, but this is where technical analysis really comes into play. I saw some, let me see if I can pull up the article. I did see an analyst come out yesterday and put like a $2,700 price target on this. Let's see if it's in the news here down below. I think it was Evercore ISI. They put a target of, theirs was 1,200, which is reasonable. That's coming from this trend line here. So whoever put out that $2,600 price target, I mean, that's not based in any sort of reality. And when analysts start to do that, you have to start to be careful, because those are meant to trick retail. That's supposed to get you to buy in here. What I would expect with this move, based on what these bulls are doing, obviously, you always want to watch what Wall Street is doing and not what they say. So Wall Street's really looking for a move up into here, and then I would expect some exhaustion there from SanDisk. So we've got a little mini flag forming here. Need to see this make its push. So let's see what SanDisk can do with that. We got NBIS was another one. Looks like only about $100,000 bet came in. 230 calls. 220 days out. So those are pretty far out, but a lot of optimism there again. I mean, this is pretty extended. Looking for 230 on this. So see if this can keep pushing here on NBIS. Meta, 750 calls. Not too unreasonable there. Just looking to get to the all-time highs. RevMed. So this came in when the stock was already at 144. So they put this bet down right here at the top, which I don't necessarily understand. Had already blown through this gap. Super late move on this. We've got the daily RSIs at 86. I just don't understand why someone would make this call here. They've got 150 calls for 65 days. So maybe they're just looking for one tiny final push there for a couple more percent, but we have to check the open interest and see if that's still open. It's not one I like long term. EL, we did have a put come in on this name, a $70 put here. So potentially, it's only 94 days. So this could potentially be a retest here of this breakout. So I actually like this as a short-term play, coming down and retesting here before getting bullish in the long term. So interesting on that. MicroStrategy, we had a put, $100 put. And these have been really interesting. Some of these crypto ones, like we talked about with Ether and Bitcoin earlier, expecting a little bit of cooling off. So can this come down to the 100 level? I've got an alert set here. I'm interested in it if it gets to 100. And this whale seems to think it's going to get there as well. We did have a Google put for 305. Here, so just kind of a retest of the support level. That was 185 days. So, but they could be waiting for it to get in the money and really big move down there in Google. Now, some of the long-term stuff I'm seeing here, BlackRock, we did see about 3 million in bearish bets here on BlackRock. So this is really forming, looks a little bit exhausted, could be entering into a sort of a stage 4 here. So a whale really is bearish on that. Bank of America, also same thing, same chart. Had a $4.5 million from the floor of the stock exchange. 65 calls. So those were sold. 65 calls were sold. So basically betting that the price doesn't go above 65 on this name. What else do we have that's interesting here? We've got some Microsoft calls, some TSM calls, some NVIDIA calls. And then we'll go into some of the alerts. SYNA, don't know who this is. This was bullish. So we had a $360,000 for 110 calls. So about there, puts it in the money. So interesting there, 46% out of the money. Very bullish move there on this Synaptics. We had a floor trade here in SilJ, Silver Miners. This was bearish. They sold a 33 call, so they are looking for price to stay below 33. So probably looking at some kind of bear flag here, where this is starting to show some exhaustion, is not making any new moves higher. Oops. So looking for a breakdown here, so that their 33 call that they sold stays a winner here. BMNR, again, really mixed signals here in crypto. This was a 25 put that they bought. Just want to make sure I have this right. Yep, that they bought it. So it's bearish. So an in the money put, 129 days to expiration. So they're really looking for this to not get over this resistance level here, support turn resistance on Bitmine immersion, and maybe a retest here of this like $11 on that one. Charter, CHTR, we had a $300,000 250 calls. So looking for it to get above this resistance level. Yesterday kind of rejected it, but it's been really range bound here. But that whale is looking for some kind of push above. Let's see if there's any sort of pattern we can identify on the lower time frames here. So maybe possibly here we have a trend line break and retest. Yeah, I would say that that's decently valid. Overshot it a little bit, but that could work. Could be what they're looking at. What else do we have? We had Lemonade. That was an interesting one. Insurance company. bullish 60, 75 calls for 65 days out. So here I had traded this a long time ago. Potential trendline break here that they're looking at to push this 75 level. So like that, we've got some MACD strength here. So interesting move. That's why it's so fun to look at these, what the whales are doing. WST, we had a 280 calls being sold, so bearish. So kind of a bear flag here. They're thinking that price does not get above 280 and collapses from here. So we'll see how that works out on that one. But yeah, as we're kind of wrapping things up, I'm going to head over to the Discord and start sharing a couple of opportunities. I've got a huge backlog of alerts I need to send out. The market's sending us a ton of great entries this week. So I'm going to load probably at least 5 to 7 new entries that are designed for either swing trades or kind of set it and forget it investments. So I'll be loading those in the community today. If you're not a member, check out the description below. There is a coupon code in there for a free 7-day trial to the full community. And inside there, we're always sharing same thing. We've got medium term, 60 to 180 day swings, swing options, and then set it and forget it investment type of plays. So check that out and hope to see a few of you over there in the community soon. So thanks for joining us. And remember, we'll see you tomorrow for our final stream of the week, and then no streams on Fridays.